Hey, fourth grade, I'm going to be reading to you their Florida Studies Weekly this week, and I'm going to give you some hints and tips about answering all of the questions on the crossword and the map exercise on the back. So go ahead and get out your Florida Studies Weekly. I'm going to share my screen with you so we can read along together. We're going to start on the front page that says Cities of Florida. So far in Florida Studies Weekly, we've learned how things used to be here in Florida. It's been fun and interesting talking about Florida's symbols, natives, wars, railroads, settlers, and even prehistoric animals. In this issue, you'll learn about a different kind of history, the history of Florida's cities. Now, we've already learned a lot about one city here in Florida. That's St. Augustine. We even got to go visit it earlier in the year. Let's see what other cities we can learn about here in Florida. The odds are pretty good that you live in or near a city in Florida. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. We're here in this first paragraph, kids. After all, more than half of all Floridians do. What would people from Florida's past think of our modern day cities? Would they be nervous surrounded by so many buildings? How would they feel about the noise? What would someone who had only oil lamps and campfires think about electric lights, neon signs, and headlights on cars? How would someone who had only eaten his or her own cooking like eating at restaurants that serve food from all over the world? Cities are amazing places, even for modern people. They're great places for learning about people because cities are usually home to all sorts of people in every size, shape, and race. People bring with them great knowledge about everything you'll ever want to know. Cities have just about everything in them. Parks, libraries, pizza places, schools, homes, stores of every kind, jails, theaters, boats, planes, and trains. But there are also questions to be asked about cities. Here are a few to think about. Where did they come from? Why was a city built in one place instead of another? How many people does it take to make a city? When did cities first come to Florida? Where's the very best place to buy pizza? Well, Florida Studies Weekly will answer some of those questions and leave others for you to think about. We look pretty hard at some of Florida's cities, and we think you'll like some of the stuff we dug up. So take a deep breath and let's hit the city. All right, go ahead and open up your Studies Weekly to inside. We are going to start down here at the bottom with Pensacola, City of Five Flags. It is the purple box at the very bottom that says Florida Facts. There we are. Oh, and you can see that I've already highlighted the first sentence. I'll give you a hint. Everything I've highlighted in here will help you answer the questions on the back. Pensacola has sometimes been called by its nickname, the City of Five Flags. Now, don't think that Pensacola has 5 different city flags. The nickname came about because the city has been ruled by 5 different governments since 1559, when it was founded by Don Tristan de Luna, a man from Spain. Spain? Yes, Spain. So that was one government. In 1719, the city was captured by the French, so that made 2. It became British after the French and Indian War, so that made 3. In 1821, Pensacola became part of the United States, which still rules it today. So that's 4. Wait a minute, didn't we say it had 5 different flags? Oh yeah, during part of the Civil War, Pensacola was held by the Confederacy, or the Southern States. Their flag made 5 governments. One of the things that Pensacolians are most proud of is their beautiful crystal white coastline. Of all the beautiful beaches in places like Sarasota, Sanibel Island, Fort Walton, West Palm Beach, and others, Pensacola is one of the best. All right, let's go ahead and head to the top. Tampa. Oh, the title of this section is Major Florida Cities. Let's first read about Tampa. Tampa is on our west coast. Let's find out about its history. Tampa, military history galore. Tampa was named and occupied by American Indians long before anyone ever thought of fighting wars in America. It had some famous visitors too. Ponce de Leon and Hernando de Soto both visited Tampa way back in the 1500s. But Tampa's history as a town began in the 1800s during the Seminole Wars when Fort Brooke was built. A town was built there after the fort was completed, And the town was also called Fort Brooke. Maybe it was confusing that both the town and the fort were named the same thing. In any case, the old American Indian name of Tampa was revived, but Tampa's military history doesn't end there. During the Spanish-American War, Colonel Theodore Roosevelt, oh, you may know his name because he is a future president, and the Rough Riders were stationed in Tampa. Remember him? We learned about him in week 19. Go ahead and highlight that sentence. It's going to help you a little bit later. Now let's read a little bit more about St. Augustine. I wonder if we've already learned everything we're going to read. Let's find out. This just wouldn't be a newspaper about Florida cities without saying something about good old St. Augustine. You know, it's still the oldest city in the United States, founded by Europeans. And it always will be. New cities are sprouting up all the time, but only one can be the oldest. St. Augustine was already 55 years old when the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. It was 210 years old when the American Revolution began. Today in St. Augustine, you can still see homes, churches, and forts that will remind you of those early Spanish settlers who came to the area in the 1500s. How old is St. Augustine now? Well, it was founded in 1565. What year is it now? Can you figure it out? It says you can use a calculator, but I know all of you can figure this out on your own. That's your challenge for this week. Tell me how old St. Augustine is. All right, let's continue to read about Orlando. That's a city that's the closest to us, so let's find out something maybe we didn't know before. Orlando, like many cities, started out with a different name. It was first called Jernigan, after a man named Aaron Jernigan, who founded the city in 1850. The place was settled because of the security of nearby Fort Gatlin. The city's name was changed to Orlando in 1857 to honor an American Indian runner named Orlando Reeves. So go ahead and highlight that whole section because you're going to need that section to answer the questions on the back. Orlando Reeves was killed in the Seminole Wars. Reeves certainly wasn't the last athlete to ever make a name for himself in Orlando. Orlando is the home of the Orlando Magic and the Florida Citrus Bowl. Oh, they didn't mention this, which makes me a little sad, but I know some of you are soccer fans. It's also the home of the Orlando City Lions. The Orlando Magic, Citrus Bowl. Oh, but even if you're not a sports fan, there's still a ton to do in Orlando. You might visit Disney World and Epcot Center, get wet at SeaWorld, or reach for the stars at John Young Planetarium at the Orlando Science Center. Whew, doing everything that there is to do in Orlando can wear a person out. Do you guys like roller coasters? I love them. I don't know how many of you do, but they are so much fun. Let's keep reading. All right, on the next page, Jacksonville, too darn hot. Jacksonville's on the east coast of Florida, way up by Georgia. So let's read about Jacksonville. And here's a picture of Jacksonville and one of the famous bridges there. All right, let's keep reading. Florida is lucky to have Jacksonville. In 1901, a huge fire burned down 147 city blocks. Go ahead and highlight that. You're going to need it for later. But when your home is your home, there's nothing to do but build it back again. That's just what the citizens of Jacksonville did. And today it's bigger and more beautiful than ever before. Jacksonville was founded in 1822 close to the St. Johns River, the most important waterway in Florida. People like to be close to the water for many reasons. Rivers are a good way to get goods and people from place to place. Before planes, trains, and automobiles, rivers were the roads. Of course, people need water to drink and to help them clean too. Jacksonville began as a town called Cowford, but it was renamed pretty quickly. Can you guess who it was named after? You got it. Jacksonville is just one of the cities in the United States named after Andrew Jackson, military general, governor, president, and Mr. $20 bill himself. Today, Jacksonville takes the prize as Florida's most populated city. That's something I didn't know about Jacksonville. I hope you learned something too. Tallahassee. We've talked about Tallahassee in class, kids. It is our capital. Let's read about Tallahassee. Green, clean, and halfway between. Florida's capital city is Tallahassee, and it's a city that has seen many different people come and go. The land in the area is very fertile. That means it's good for growing stuff, and the land was here long before the city ever was. For generations, the land was lived on by the Appalachian Indians, a tribe that isn't around anymore. Go ahead and highlight that sentence. You're going to need it for later. Excuse me. They were driven out by English settlers and Creek Indians, and the area later became a Seminole Indian village. In fact, the Seminoles still live there when Tallahassee was chosen as Florida's territorial capital in 1823. Why did settlers choose Tallahassee as the capital? Well, it was right between Pensacola and St. Augustine, two other cities that wanted to be Florida's capital. That's pretty slick. That's a pretty slick way to solve an argument, isn't it? The word Tallahassee comes from a Creek Indian word with two meanings. One meaning is old town, and the other is old friend. Both words describe the city pretty well, don't you think? Last city we're going to read about today is Miami, from village to boomtown. The word Miami probably comes from the American Indian word Miami, which means big water. That's a pretty good name because Miami is right at the mouth of the Miami River. You might say that Miami got its start when Henry Flagler built a railroad that ended right where the city is now. On the other hand, you might say that Miami began under the name of Fort Dallas, which was built in 1836, right in the middle of the Seminole Wars. Of course, you might say that Miami got its start way before that. Maps made in the 1500s show that there was an American Indian village right where downtown Miami is now. In any case, the area became the city of Miami in 1896 and has grown ever since. Almost 13 million tourists visited Miami in 2010, and nearly half of them came from countries other than the United States. About 2.5 million people are lucky enough to live in Miami-Dade County. All right, kids, I want to read one more section for you just because they're my favorite water bird here in Florida, all about the anhinga. And when we were in Silver Springs, we got to see anhinga and we got to see cormorants, and they are both types of water birds that fish underwater. So let's read a little bit about the anhinga. Their common name is also water turkey. Have you ever seen one of these turkeys? Anhingas love to proudly perch on prominent posts and pose for passing people as they preen and puff their plumage until they're perfectly positioned. Whew. The reason anhingas have to go through all of that just to dry their wings is that they often swim with only their head and bill above the water. This would be fine if they had waterproof feathers like ducks, but these birds are not totally adapted to the water. So why do they swim underwater? They love fish, and they're great spearfishers. They are also great flyers. The anhinga is often seen high overhead, soaring like a hawk. Anhingas are also sometimes called snake birds because you can mistake them for a snake swimming in the water when just their head and their beak are out. All right, I hope that helps you guys. We are going to continue reading these together. If you have any questions about your Florida Studies Weekly, feel free to give me a call. Also, the map exercise on the back, you can look up a map of Florida if you need to online to help you fill that out. All right, I hope that helps, guys, and I will hopefully see all of you this afternoon at our Zoom meeting.